Hello, everyone. Welcome to Happy Hour. My name's Trey Lyle. Joining me as they do every week is Michael Massie and Dalton Hopkins. If you're wondering, Puke Combs has decided he is negotiating a new contract, so we have not had him on the past couple weeks, or he's working at a McDonald's. So I don't know which is which, but we have not heard back from him. So we're gonna put an APP
Maybe he's
out.
just lazy.
He might be that too. But if you find Luke Combs in public, please reach out to him and say we would love a song back. Otherwise, we're gonna have to find a new musician, and we are screwed otherwise. So,
I'll say I was talking to Puke before this, and if Alex Pillow had made the winning pass on the outside, he would have been singing "Palo from the outside."
Anyway, Brian Nolan in our comment section, so he's excited. He may or may not, speaking of Alex Pillow, hint for bringing the heat this week. Just maybe Alex Pillow will.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's
keep that with a hard maybe right now, all right?
It's a hard maybe, but I have to tease it so that we maybe get listeners for that. All right, joining us now, because he's just been chilling. He has actually show and tell for us here, so I want to include that. Friend of the show. I think he is now for sure become the most guests, like the most outside. We're not counting Davey, because
I'm
Davey
coming for his crown.
Basically Dalton would have to go to war, and you would have to fill in for him to catch up to Davey. So I don't know if we want to do that again. But we're not counting Davey because he technically was a fill-in. He wasn't the guest each week. So I think Newby is the most guest appearances on our show. John Newby from Savage Ventures. So just, I know you have show and tell for us. So do you want to show that off? I know it's not NASCAR related, but I figured I would allow you to have show and tell.
This goes back to my friendship with Massie and his dying love for the Packers. This is my autographed photo of Jared Allen sacking Aaron Rodgers. One of the many times that made me very happy on the football field. Also, Jared Allen, super nice guy. I interviewed him a couple times.
Look at that.
He was our rival team, but I did have nothing but respect for Jared Allen.
Somewhere I have hit the Jared Allen cookbook too, which is also pretty great.
Yeah.
Right. What are you not excited about? We're about to talk NASCAR or motorsports for an hour. So thank you, Javier. We got our front stretch garage already popping. Javier's in here as well. So leave your comments, your thoughts throughout the entire thing. Congratulate Newby. Can you tell me how to get here? Can you tell me how this can happen?
Well, to be fair, he disowned Idaho State for a while, and he said he actually went to Culinary Academy, so you should be okay now.
Got it. Understand. He did go to Culinary Academy.
Yes.
Shout. And Brian, Massie never has sung a song on Front Street. It was always Puke Combs. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Can you get your facts straight? Massie has never sung. It was Puke Combs. I think he was just playing a sample of Puke Combs.
I think if it's I think Puke Combs is going to be there on Broadway this weekend. So I'll hopefully I'll get to see him. I mean, if he's any good, like he should be there on Broadway this weekend, one of the biggest weekends in Nashville.
True.
Yeah, if he's any good,
maybe he might be on the streets of Nashville. I don't know about in a bar.
Yeah, it might be in like a street corner playing with his guitar, asking for chump change.
They offered him a spot singing at the track, but they said he's not old enough yet. He needs to be at least 80 years old to sing at the track.
Well, he's pretty close to 80, it feels like, so the way he acts. So we'll see. All right, let's get into it. As always, sit back, relax, and crack open a cold one. All right. When I asked John Newby for his topic, he proceeds to send me this long paragraph. I had to take 2 hours just to read the thing.
Probably just heavily censor some of it too.
I told him not to because I just shared our Kenny Wallace clip and said you have free reign. But I'm okay if you censor it because then it's less work for me. I just said you don't have to. But the floor is yours. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about personalities in drivers and the fans in particular with that.
I've seen a big mixed reaction from fans where they talk about how they want big personalities in sports. They want all these guys to be out there living large, like Dale Jr. was, like Kenny Wallace was, like all these old drivers with their huge personalities. They complain about how, like William Byron, Chase Elliott are quiet, shy guys who don't talk much. But then I posted a photo on Twitter this weekend of Noah Gragson hanging out shirtless with comedian Bert Kreischer, who was also shirtless. And the reactions were, what a chump. He's just the new Matt DiBenedetto trying to do anything to just get attention. Jeez. It's like, this is like the driver who's shown the most personality in the sport. He's out there jumping trucks when he's not supposed to. He's doing backflips on dirt bikes at Travis Pastrana's house. He's doing crazy golf hijinks. He's putting bullhorns on a Mini Cooper pickup truck and just racing around town. Yeah, exactly. See? It's just one of those things where that's a dude living his best life and showing his personality. And I appreciate that Noah goes out and puts in that effort to engage with fans. And you can see why he gets voted into the All-Star fan vote every single year. Because it's 3 years running he's won it. And he won Most Popular Driver in Xfinity a few times. But the part that frustrates me is like the inconsistencies. Do you want big personalities, or are you going to get mad when people have big personalities? Because you can't have both. You got to pick a side.
I was gonna ask, is that Tony Stewart in that picture with him?
No.
No, Tony was in Indianapolis.
Tony, I was gonna say you were closer to Tony Stewart in that photo than John Newby was to Tony Stewart.
I mean, it is one of those things where I can say that I officially interviewed Noah Gragson while he was shirtless, which was a very interesting experience.
Yeah, I think not many people could say they did that.
See, I feel like.
I was gonna say is it's not like he was next to anyone. He was next to, like, the biggest comedian on the planet, arguably. Like he's in
up there.
He's in the conversation. Like Bert Kreischer, who's is one of the best comedians. Like he's one of the biggest comedians on the planet. The dude just like had this event at a football stadium and got it sold out. It's just it's kind of, I agree with you. I think Noah has the fact that you've seen all the growth from Noah, yet he's maintained still him. He's grown maturity wise. He's grown up a lot. I think the immaturity is like from people is still holding him back, but you can tell he's grown up maturity wise a lot. But he's still himself. Like I just appreciate a driver being himself. I think you look at it like some guys are just quieter dudes. I think that's what Chase Elliott is. I think if Chase Elliott was the same talent in the same position, but his name was John Doe, like no one would complain about his personality or that he doesn't have personality. It's the fact he's Chase Elliott and he's the most popular driver. But Chase, I think, doesn't act a certain way, just as himself. And this is himself. And I think in order to be the best at what you do on a racetrack, you have to be yourself. And I think that's what Noah's doing. I think that's what Chase does. And they're very different people. And Chase, because of his family lineage, gets the Bill Elliott popular driver bump. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the fact. And I think for Noah, he's definitely an old school kind of guy in terms of his personality. I think his good comparison is Tim Richmond. Obviously, he's acted like Tim Richmond a lot. Mm-hmm. I think it's Tim Richmond without the other stuff. And I think he's really kind of that ilk, and he's nothing but good. And also, anytime you're next to someone that big like Bert Kreischer, it's never a bad thing for NASCAR. It's just never a bad team. Sorry to interrupt you, Dalton. What were you gonna say?
No, I think so. For like anybody, man, I really hope there was nobody here that put out an article in the last 2 weeks basically saying that a lot of drivers don't have personality anymore. and maybe perhaps highlighting a specific driver that has more personality than anybody else. God forbid there's anybody here that's done something like that.
I
Especially,
know his name rhymes with Walton Hopkins, right?
yeah, my evil twin brother. Yeah, no, so here's the thing. I think getting photos of a guy shirtless is cool and all, but is that like the fans that complain, right? People that complain that drivers don't have personality anymore, they're not looking at. Yeah, I'm sorry, John, and I really am because I love you and I love the stuff that you put out, but they're not looking at John Newby's photos they put out on Twitter. They're looking.
They're not.
They're looking at the Fox Sports interviews. They're looking at Amazon Prime interviews. They're looking at the interviews that NBC gets, and every single time, you get a camera in front of Noah Gregson's face or anybody else's in the garage's face. It's always, yeah, we had a really good card today. Want to thank my sponsors. Want to thank my crew chief. Yeah, good day, good car. Can't wait for the next one. Ta-da! Like that's the end of that. So I agree. Look, so I don't want to say that these guys don't have personality. They absolutely do. Honestly, all of them do when you think about it. But the problem is that they do it when the cameras are away. And I mean, though John used the camera to get Noah Gregson, he was not doing it in front of the Amazon Prime cameras. And that's unfortunate because I guess, all the people that were watching, all the viewers that were watching, I guarantee they would have loved to have seen that. And they would have loved to have seen an interview between Noah and Bert Kreischer. But that didn't happen. John did. So kudos to John, but maybe not kudos to Amazon Prime. So we missed that. That part's unfortunate. That's not reaching the bigger audience, and I don't really know who to blame for that. But it's like everyone says, is that these guys need to be more like themselves when they go to the racetrack, and I don't really see a whole lot of it when somebody finishes, unless they're angry. Like that's it. That's the only time I actually see some kind of personality come out, and I don't really see a whole lot of people saying something funny or being witty or anything like that, or kind of paying homage to like their home. Like when I say that, I mean I'm looking at Cletus McFarland, right? They get him after every ARCA race, and the guy always has something hilarious to say, and it always makes social media. Hence why he has 4 million subscribers on YouTube. So that's that part. I wish more guys were like that, and they would do more funny things. I mean, I also want to mention like Carson Hocevar. Like, I mean, because that's the one who I was talking about, who I referred to the article with a couple weeks ago, and of course, I still take that to meaning. But the problem is that Carson Hocevar, yes, he does have personality. I believe again, all of them do, but he doesn't really show it a whole lot when the camera is in front of him, unless he's the one holding the mic. He's done some great stuff being a commentator, being a reporter. So, Massie, you've seen a lot of guys be personalities, and honestly, like after this weekend, I've kind of noticed that you have a greater memory than I do. I'm kind of curious if there's anybody like
AK, your oldest dirt.
I was not saying that. I was just saying that Massie's got a great memory. So, is there anybody out there that you feel like had more personality than a lot of the guys that we have today?
Well, and first off, I see people in the comments saying that hurry up and talk about the horsepower. And
Best for life. We're getting to it.
That is our next topic. That is our next
promise.
topic. So we will talk about it. So we got to give you the vegetables before you get the dessert. But you talk about Trey, you're talking about people like being themselves. And it's funny that Dalton, you mentioned Cletus McFarland, because he is literally the one driver not being himself.
Yeah,
his real name is what? Garrett Mitchell?
Garrett Mitchell, yeah.
Like,
he's got to create a whole new persona.
Yeah, it's just a persona.
He basically just was like, I'm gonna change Ricky Bobby's name and be him and make a YouTube channel.
Yeah, he's essentially everything he is just he got from Talladega Nights. Which, hey, it's great he wants to be a part of NASCAR. I don't understand the appeal, but if it's bringing other people to NASCAR, then that's great for the sport.
We just need Mr. Beast to do a game to sponsor a race, and like the winner gets $100,000, but they have to survive and they have to survive in the car for like 24 hours or something, like he does on his channel.
Yeah, something like
just
that.
Spin ideas here.
I think I've said on here before that fans actually like drivers with no personality. Hence the Hendrick love, even though their drivers are washed of all personality. I do think it's cool what Prime is doing with the post race show, where like they had a beer with Ross Chastain. Like that was the most we've seen of Ross, I feel like, all year, and that was pretty cool. As for like people being the way they drivers used to be, I mean, there's a little bit of rose-colored glasses. Yes, you had guys like Ward Burton who literally threatened to shoot the most popular driver, and people loved him for that. You had characters like that, but there's also people like David Pearson, who's arguably one of the best. He's one of the top 5 best drivers ever. They talk about how cool he was. If you stuck a microphone in his face, he'd probably say 5 words. Like, he was not good on TV and talking like Richard Petty. He was extremely popular. He wouldn't tell you what happened. He'd just be like, yeah, that deal over there, it's all good. And he just never gave a lot of details in interviews or anything like that. So there's a little bit of rose-colored glasses. I mean, Dale Earnhardt Jr., during his bud years, like his most famous years, he was really shy. Mm-hmm. And it's only like in his later years that he really kind of came out of a shell and has become what he is now. But I don't know. People are going to be people, and I think just like them or don't like them. I mean, that's as simple as that for being a fan.
Yeah, there's some good points in the comment section here. Talking about Ty Gibbs pushes the camera away. Noah here talking about if they get angry, they get called a crybaby. I think we saw that with Joey Logano this past week, which again he retracted those statements. But yeah, I know, John, you had one last point you wanted to give.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree with all those points. I've had great conversations with Ty Gibbs behind the scenes about, like mountain biking and random stuff like that, or BMX biking. I've had great conversations with Chase Elliott about, all sorts of random topics, whether it's video games, country music, or just whatever. I mean, even the other day, Saturday, I spent a few minutes talking to Austin Cindric. We frequently talk about random custom cars and things. So he has like a Volvo station wagon he's building. We talk about that. We talk about, like drag racers that he wants to get behind the wheel of just for fun. There's a lot of these guys that have a ton of personality when the camera's off, to Dalton's point, which I appreciate that Netflix is coming in and trying to highlight some people. But the hard part is some of these guys that have really great personalities aren't making the playoffs right now. So if we could have like pipe dream, if you could have like a full season documentary series that covered some of these bigger personalities, we could see like, hey, Todd Gilliland's really funny behind the scenes. Same with Noah, same with like Ross Chastain is definitely 2 very different personalities, because there's like the really fun Chastain, but then there's also the very serious Chastain who doesn't want to talk to the media that much. So I wish there was a way to kind of like show all of those sides of these drivers to the fans. I mean, it'd be ideal, which I know is very hard to do.
Yeah, we'll see. I know a couple of NASCAR guys have started their own YouTube channel. I know like Bubba Wallace has posted a couple vlogs, so we'll see if that could be the route where you see more of it too for the non-playoff guys. Obviously, if I had to build a playoff bracket, I'm putting Bubba Wallace in now, so he probably would be part of the Netflix doc if they do it again this year. But my point being, just maybe we'll get more of that. But we need to move on.
Certain lawsuit to keep him out of that, but
that is true. That's true. So all right, Bass for Life. I hope you're excited. We want, if this is your only comment tonight, then I will be very disappointed. All right, boys. There's some ponies coming, possibly.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Dalton. Elton Sawyer made some comments. Was it today?
Mm-hmm.
My days are thrown off because of the
Yeah,
holiday.
let me check my Twitter. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, it was today. Yeah, 11
All
hours
right.
ago.
You set this up, and I'm gonna pass the ball to you and set up the topic that these people have been waiting for.
Yeah, I think this has been. Look, how many times have you guys gone on Twitter in the last year or so and have seen that one clip of Jeff Gordon qualifying for the 2013 Coke 600? I think it was a Coke 600, and it was and he's just ripping it and it's like the engine's really loud, and the caption's always the same, like, man, we really had it good those days, and so on and so forth. And it's like, yeah, but yet everyone hated the car, so yeah, that's why we have the next gen now. I digress. And everyone screams as a result, like everyone screams for more horsepower, whether it be for the nostalgia's sake, but there's also a lot of people who are very outwardly spoken, such as Denny Hamlin, who say that more horsepower is going to help the short track racing and help the racing everywhere in general. And up to this point, NASCAR has just said no, it's going to cost too much and it's going to drive OEMs away from the sport. Well, today, the NASCAR Senior Vice President of Competition, Elton Sawyer, said that increasing horsepower on Cup cars is on the table and is being discussed daily, which to me, I know it's not confirmation that it's going to happen, but to me, that sounds like that NASCAR is at least seriously considering it, which is the most progress that we have seen in, well, forever. So that's very hopeful. It gives us a lot of hope. And honestly, it sounds like that it's probably going to happen. That's great. And I'm all for trying something new. Look, here's the thing. This is part of my whole take on it is like, I understand that you want to attract new OEMs, and sure, that would be really fun to see somebody like Dodge come back. Honda, I know, is a rumor about them coming into the sport. That'd be fantastic. But the problem is that we don't really have a racing product right now that is very attractive, and bringing in a new OEM should not be priority number one on the list. It should be fixing these cars on the short tracks and the road courses. And it sounds like NASCAR is finally starting to take heed of that. So I'm kind of curious what your guys' sake is on this. But honest to God, I'm pretty sure all of us are probably of the same opinion that I really hope it happens. John, I will open up the floor to you. I'm sure you are going to be very articulate. Excuse me, very articulate and very opinionative as always.
Well, articulate, that's questionable. I will say that...
More articulate than us.
I will say that I'm a big fan of adding horsepower to the cars because anything that challenges the drivers more, I'm all for. And I actually have to turn to someone much smarter than me because when I heard Sawyer's comments this morning, it was right before Ryan Preece met with media members. And that dude is all short track racing. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it's modifieds, all this different stuff. He knows how to wheel a short track car. So I asked him, hey, is more horsepower a good thing? Is that going to fix the short track racing? And he said, yes, it's another tool for our toolbox. I want more than, 30 extra horsepower or 70 extra horsepower. I want way more, closer to the 900 that they used to have back in the day. He said it won't like magically fix the short track racing, but it'll definitely make it to where they can mess around with different throttle time and different strategies. So, you could try harder, burn through your tires, or you could kind of chill a little bit while the rest of the drivers go crazy. And then he brought up an interesting point. He said that with a lot of short track cars are, 2,600 pounds, 2,700 pounds, and they have the same like 600 to 700 horsepower as the Cup cars. But a Cup car is 3,500 pounds. So if you're looking at it, that's, much higher weight to power ratio. So it doesn't produce the same level as acceleration or anything like that. Where if you, add an extra horsepower to compensate for that extra weight, it can just make the racing product better for everyone. So, I want to see it. Like, I think Goodyear's done a very admirable job recently with all of the tire changes that they've messed around with. We've seen fall off was better at like Wilkesboro, especially with drivers being able to use multiple lanes. So if you could add that to improved horsepower, it won't be perfect because this car is not ever going to be perfect. But I think it would be much better than what it has been.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I at least, I don't know if we should mess with the intermediates right now because they're the best they've been in a long time. And like, I can remember some Coke 600s that were just boring and it seemed like they lasted forever. Dirt
This
Win
last
we
one was
had.
great.
Yeah,
These
That was
last
a good-
3 or 4. I mean, well, I guess except for
for the
last
rain.
year.
Yeah.
The one
Yeah.
that might be on my screen right now is a next gen era one was really good as well.
Is that 22?
That is correct. Look, someone finally got it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah, it was.
Is that the Denny Hamlin
Yep.
one?
That's
Okay,
the one where Austin
Yeah.
Dillon had the 4 fresh tires and he
Yeah,
would have won, but he got a little too aggressive.
He yeeted himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I picked him in a survivor pool to win that race, and I'm still mad about it.
Cool.
Well, now we're getting a Liberty
Sorry.
1030 commercial.
There you
Uh,
go. Right,
Jimmy-
right on par.
Jimmy Needus says actually makes up a really good point here. If the racing gets better, more people watch, making more money, bringing in more OEMs potentially. NASCAR just trying to skip the steps.
Yeah,
And I think that's a really good point.
it's like the South Park thing where they're like, step 1, steal pants. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit. That's NASCAR right now. Step 1, lower horsepower. Step 2, I don't know. Step 3, profit. But
Yeah. Are we? So Michael Massie, I do have a question. Get in the mind of Elton Sawyer here. What do you think he's thinking about this?
he's thinking that we like what we see, so we'll take a look at it.
Take a look at it.
You want more
That's
horsepower?
that's what he
God.
said. Like, do we believe? So my whole thing is Newby, you're right. Like you were actually right. You're because there's a reason why you're smarter than me. You're right. I believe it when I see it. Like, also, what if it's just 750? Like, they go up to 750. I think that would be the next. It's not going to be. I don't think they're going to go to. Will that
Should
make
be
bigger difference?
900.
Will
It
they
should
get
be.
to?
It won't be.
Yeah,
be
it won't
7
be, but it should be.
If I had to bet on a number, I'm betting on 750.
I
I'm
am
betting
too,
on
yeah.
750 for the short tracks, and they're being like, "See, this is when the short tracks were good. We had 750 horsepower."
See, that's the thing. Like, that's all they have to do. We're not asking for 750 at every racetrack.
Yeah.
Like, I think all of us can agree the intermediates are good right now.
Yeah.
So let's just keep it as it is for the intermediates, and then for the short tracks and road courses,
Yeah,
we
it's
can bump it up
crazy.
to
It's like
750.
You just got off a car that was you had a different
Yeah.
engine package for different types of racetracks, because it's crazy how different type of racetracks mean you need to have different types of cars.
I
Dude,
mean,
did you-
Crazy idea.
yeah.
So do you remember those sheets they sent out before the season where on the Gen 6 cars would be like, all right, for this track length, we're going to have this horsepower number. For this track length, we're going to have this
Yes.
horsepower number. For the super speedways, we're going to have this horsepower number. Just keeping that stuff straight in your brain when you're writing articles was a nightmare.
The 550 package, I'm pretty sure, was the worst travesty ever conducted by mankind. So I'm glad that we've gone away from that. Yeah, I feel like this is like before, like this past, like how desperate are we? Like before this past weekend, like without increasing the horsepower. This past weekend, Massie and I were kind of joking around because we were at Indianapolis together, and we were joking around like, we should just bring in the late models, like just have them run late models of the short tracks or the Xfinity cars. Like, just you got to do something different, man. And I mean, I know it's not an absolute stinker every single time. Like, I felt like that North Wilkesboro wasn't that bad, but it could
was
always, yeah, but it could be better. Like, it could always be better than what we've got right now. And I feel like this is the answer. This is one of the answers that we can actually do without absolutely screwing the teams. I was kind of debating whether I should say it. Like screwing over the teams, you know?
I would say another talk we were having this weekend, Dalton, was about Formula One. How we couldn't even tell like what OEMs there were for certain teams there, like at first glance, but
But
yet
they don't have OEMs. They just have have like car brands and then engines.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
So,
not
like,
like all
the
teams
car
are running.
brands but like they're still getting involved in that, even though like you're not gonna be like, oh, Max Verstappen won. Let me find out what kind of car he's driving, what kind of engine he's got in there, because Like, it looks cool. They want to be in it because it's cool, and it's where all the fans are and stuff. And I think that goes back to Jimmy Nidus's point of you make the product, make everything about NASCAR seem awesome, and it doesn't matter if the cars really look just like the cars, or if they have more horsepower than maybe what your street cars have. You just want to be part of it because it's the cool thing to be in.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? It looks like it's a race car. No one is expecting to look like a street car, you know? Like, it's a race car.
Well,
Like, it's a
NASCAR
race
fans,
car.
NASCAR fans want it to be like the 60s and 70s, where it was the car you bought off the lot, you just took
And
it to
then
the
fix
race.
it up. That's just
Yeah,
stupid.
you fixed it up and you sold it on Monday. And I
How do you know
want to tell
that's-
y'all right now, those days are gone. I'm sorry.
Well-
They've been gone since the 90s.
Hold up. Are you saying that the Toyota Camry hybrid that I drove from Charlotte to Talladega was not the same as the car that Denny Hamlin drives on the track?
Afraid not, my friend. Let me ask you this. Did it have other seats other than your own?
It did, and it
Yeah,
also shut off
sorry.
at stoplights.
Ooh, yeah, you're SOL there.
Dang it.
Yeah, sorry about that, buddy.
Imagine that someone losing a race because like their Prius battery died, and they have to come in to charge it.
I mean, it's crazy to me, like, how, I get, like, this is a little nugget that Elton Sawyer is giving NASCAR fans. But when I first read it, I was like, okay, sure, I'll believe you when I see it.
Mhm.
I feel like we've had the same discussion. I know this is a great talk, and technically we're giving great points, but like, I don't know how y'all think. I am really of the belief of like, all right, cool, prove it, like, show me, like, do it, announce it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the changes to the playoff format. It's like, all right, I'll believe it when I see it. Like, you show me,
That's how everything is in NASCAR. I mean, I was thinking back about it today. I wrote articles in like 2021 based on comments from Steve Phelps that were like, "Oh, Dodge is really close to coming back to NASCAR." And how many years ago was that now?
They've been saying that for like 5-6 years.
Mhm.
I mean, to be fair, Dodge is actually probably really close to going back to NASCAR.
Well, now they
Even
are,
on the Cup Series, yeah. Now they are.
just not back in 2021.
Right.
Anyway, any other thoughts
Dead
on
air.
this? I just was trying to make sure anyone had a final point.
I think we've said our piece.
All right. Well, this unknown human named Michael Finley just said, "Did somebody mention?"
Oh my god.
So I think like Beetlejuice, Michael Massie said Formula One too much, and Michael Finley appeared. All right. And let's move to our next topic. So speaking of open wheel racing, you all three of you were at racetracks this weekend. I was not. I was enjoying some time off. But Massie and Dalton were at the Indy 500, which was more viewed than the Daytona 500 this year. And there's actually a couple statistics to prove that this might be an interesting trend when it comes to the two big American races each year. Michael Massie, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the chart real quick because I did not have it ready to go. But way back, and thank you, Caleb Barnes, our producer, for finding this tweet with the chart for us. But way back in 2013, the Daytona 500 had 10 million viewers more than it had 16 million total. Indy 500 had 6 million. 10 million, that's a lot of people. And like as time has gone on, the gap has significantly shrunk to where 2019 they only had him beat by 5 million. Jump ahead, last year was pretty neck and neck. I'd say what was the last non-rain affected Daytona 500? I would say though, that'd be 23. They beat him by 4, a little less than 4 million in 2023. But now IndyCar is ahead for the first time. And granted, we do have to say that the Daytona 500 was rain delayed this year as well. So that certainly hurts those numbers. With the buildup it had, it probably would have beaten the Indy 500, I would guess. But What do we think about the trend, though, that this IndyCar has significantly closed what was a 10 million viewer gap just a little over a decade ago?
Dalton.
All right, I'll go for. Yeah, sure. Why not? I'll go ahead and go first and say that off the screen behind the scenes, I didn't want to do this topic because I feel like the rain delay on it in and of itself was kind of the reason why the Daytona 500 was not as viewed as much as it was. I mean, look, it probably was going to be a lot more than it actually was because I mean, we saw what was the last. I think it was 2020 that the last time that Donald Trump was there, the president was there, and that got a huge bump in viewership. And I'm sure that was going to be the case this year. I feel like it was the perfect storm, in all honesty, no pun intended, because NASCAR, the Daytona 500 was rain delayed. And not to mention, IndyCar also had a brand new broadcast partner in Fox. So more people were going to watch Fox than they did with NBC. So that was already a bigger bump in viewership as well. And not to mention, this year, the Indy 500 had a blackout. Or it lifted the blackout in Indianapolis. Which city watches the most IndyCar? Indianapolis. So, and it was the first time they were able to do that since what year was it? Was the last time they were
2020, the
sold out?
COVID year.
Well,
they did the COVID
They
year.
didn't have it last year.
Yeah, last year because of the 4-hour rain delay, they lifted the blackout eventually.
Okay. Yeah. So they were able to do that, and they had more.
But 2020 was the first time when it was on time, roughly, and it did it because there was no fans, so they lifted the blackout.
Yeah.
Which it's not
So-
like this race is not in a small
No.
market. It's in a top 25 market that basically everyone who
Mhm.
wasn't at the race would watch the race. Like I wouldn't say
Oh,
it'd be
for
a million-
sure.
It's not a million people in Indianapolis would watch it, but it's probably like what. So like a quick Google search of the population of Indianapolis is 879,293. So like
Mhm.
let's say like half of that is at the race. So maybe like 500,000 people. For
Mhm.
300,000 people maybe added to it with the blackout restriction. But I think it's actually a bit bigger than the city of Indianapolis. So do the math.
Yeah. I mean, that's just one part of it, you know, and not to mention, like I said, the rain delay, and of course the new broadcasting partner. Like, I don't think, first off, we should not be talking about how this is a detriment to NASCAR. We should be talking about how huge of a win this is for IndyCar. And I like that angle because this is a huge win for IndyCar. This is a really big thing for them, and Fox has been increasing ratings for the open wheel series for this year ever since. And I think this is a really good deal for them because look, Massie and I were both there. We both realized that this is a very prestigious race that has a lot of history, a lot of culture behind it, more so than any race in the world. And honestly, I'm surprised it's not more as it is. I'm surprised there's not more ratings to it. I feel like that's just because people don't really know what this race means. And I'm happy to see them be so successful. And I don't think this is a time for people to be concerned when it comes to Daytona 500, at least, because it's next year. I mean, I'm sure we're going to see another, if they make it on time, I'm sure it'll be a lot more than it was this year because of the 3-hour rain delay. So, this is not a big of a deal as everyone's making it out to be. It should be a positive story for IndyCar and not a negative story for NASCAR.
Yeah, you bring that up. Former front stretch colleague Michael Finley commenting here. Per Stern, they opened the Daytona 500 first 14 minutes from command to rain delay with 7.96 million viewers. Of course, that did feature the current president of the United States. Whether you love him or hate him, it would help with ratings. The number would have only increased as the race went on, and other viewers came in.
Michael Finley just help the argument to support NASCAR?
He leaves us, and maybe he's changed his tune.
I don't think that's the same Michael Finley that we know. I don't think that's possible.
Probably not. Who knows? Maybe he's been kidnapped, and that's why. But who knows?
Michael, blink twice if you've been kidnapped.
Which one? No. I think you bring up a good point. I will also say this. Fox decided to bring out like all its heavy hitters for this first broadcast. Like, remember when NBC first got it? They brought out Dale Jr. They had Mike Tirico there. By the end of it, Mike Tirico wasn't there. Dale Jr. wasn't part of Fox, or NBC. But my point being, like, Fox went all out with this. With their promotion, they started, I think, an hour earlier than typical. They did it 10 a.m. They had Danica, they had Tony Stewart, and then they had the big hitters of, like, they had Tom Brady. Like, let's get real here. Tom Brady was the biggest athlete there, like, and it's not close. Like, with anyone else there, it's Tom Brady. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. So, it's just interesting to see. So, I think that played a big part of it. Also, like, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I want to see the Tom Brady part of it," and it was that, and then the wildest start that you could even imagine happened. So it sustained viewers, where you have Scott McLaughlin crashing on the warm up, and then you have the first green flag lap, because it was lap 4 technically. You have a wreck. Like, it was a wild start to the race, and then so on and so forth. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's good for motorsports in America. You have these two at somewhat similar numbers for their biggest race. I like NASCAR is going to be like if you look at the IndyCar ratings, their graph is going to look like their difference between their Indy 500 and everything else.
Like a thorn, just. And then...
Yeah, it's a wider gap between NASCAR and the other races, NASCAR and the other races each week. So I don't think NASCAR should panic. I just think this was good for IndyCar. They got a good race out of it as well. I think the Indy 500 always delivers. Granted, the Coke 600 was better this weekend, but I think as a whole, this was those two races were way better than what we saw with Rich People in Monaco. We'll put it that way. Massie, what do you think?
Hey, I agree with it's more of a big win for IndyCar because just looking at the past year's viewership, like, it wasn't a bad rating for the Daytona 500. It's kind of somewhere in the middle of that chart. It's more than last year, and like more than 2021. But the number for IndyCar there is the highest since of that. So I think it was the highest since like 2008.
2008.
Yeah, 2008. So, yeah, really, it's just a big win for them. And, all motorsports should band together and lift each other up. And I think that's encouraging that, like, both are still really popular races. The Daytona 500 thing, my only, like, complaint about them is, it is going to rain at 3 p.m. that Sunday every year. And the start time is never adjusted one way or the other. So, like, it's insanity if you keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. I think their ratings would be higher if they move the start time around one way or the other. So, yeah.
John?
I hate when people agree on every point, but I don't really have any arguments for anything any of you have said. Like, the Indy 500 is a huge event. It's a worldwide event. People love it. It's going to get huge ratings. And like you said, with all of the efforts that Fox put in, they were pushing hard to get as good of ratings as possible. I mean, they even had First Things First was on site on Thursday and Friday to help hype it up with doing live interviews with drivers while they're also talking about other sports.
Imagine they had back in the day, they had Skip Bayless there. Thank God.
Skip and Shannon hanging out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
You know what? I don't think that Alex Blow guy's that good. He's
Skip. So I think
Scott Dixon.
Scott Dixon's not my goat. I'm Dario Franchitti. That's what probably would Skip would say.
It was just a perfect storm. And look, I like IndyCar. I like NASCAR. I cover NASCAR more than I cover IndyCar, so obviously I'm a little more biased that direction, but motorsports are awesome, and I'm glad when they do well.
That's pretty good way. Speaking of motorsports doing well, I obviously Kyle Larson, this is our final topic here, went to attempt the double again and fell short, in this time by wrecking in both races. However, it is clear that if Kyle Larson did not spin out in the Indy 500 due to the 40-minute, y'all were there, 40-minute delay basically from the start of the race.
Oh,
Yeah.
for I think it was 35
35
minutes.
plus you had
Yeah.
the McLaughlin crash and the crash at lap 4, where essentially the start of the race was delayed. Like
Yeah.
the first 10 laps of the race took an hour, from the projected start time. He was not going to finish the race. If he kept going, he was not going to finish the race. There's 30 to go at 4 o'clock when he had to leave. He was not going to finish all 500 miles because he had to get to Charlotte because he had to start the Coke 600 and be at the driver intros because of obviously the new waiver rule, which we've talked about. So
Yeah.
in the past, the Indy 500 used to start at 11 a.m. It's now moved back to 12:30. 11 a.m. would be a lot easier for the double, whereas Larson still needs to leave by 4 p.m. You would have you would have to you would have 5 hours now instead of 3.5 hours. That's a big difference. It's a really big difference in terms of race time. 3.5 hours. You basically need the race to be green for 95% of it, if it is the way it is. So, and we're not getting political. I was just stating a fact to go back to our comment sections here. Sorry, just want to point that out as we're in the middle of this. But anyway, with this, do you think IndyCar and NASCAR need to work better together with start times, whether it's Indy being pushed up, Coke 600 maybe being pushed back a little bit to encourage more of the double? Or do you think this might be the last one we see for a while because IndyCar wants the best possible start time for them and NASCAR wants the best possible start time for them, and we might not see a double for a while because it's just logistically virtually impossible because everything has to be perfect? What do you think, Massie?
I'd say the problem is greater than the time difference. It just feels like, to me, everything NASCAR has done in the past 10 years or so has basically said, we don't want people doing the Indy 500. Because first off, there's the charter deal where you're limited in the amount of cars you could put out on the track. And what that means is that if an IndyCar driver were to try to do the double, they would be stuck in with a crappy team. And so none of them are going to do it because you're not going to have a fifth Hendrick unless Junior Motorsports shows up as the fifth Hendrick car.
Or the theory out there that Penske just has a fourth car and Scott McLaughlin goes in it. That's the example I've always used.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Wood Brothers connection makes that too, but I guess I don't know.
It's not technically they wouldn't be their fourth car. They've done it before.
Yeah.
When Cindric was in Xfinity, they had the 30. Was it 33 or 20?
Yeah,
or whatever it was.
So Penske's kind of the only major team that could really do Trackhouse as well. But
we'll bring that up in a second.
You're just kind of limited with the amount of teams that you could even race for. And then everything with the waiver last year, Kyle Larson does this great thing for motorsports, is really promoting NASCAR through this whole deal. And they made it such a pain in his rear end before they even approved his waiver, and just acted and changed the rules in the off season to make it so it would hurt him even more if he missed that race. And then there's the times, obviously, with them being really close to start time. That's more IndyCar's fault for, the Coke 600 has started around the same time for as long as I can remember, but where IndyCar has encroached into that time. So both series really just need to work together if more doubles are going to happen. And I don't see that happening anytime soon while the current powers that be are still alive. But yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunate. I wish they would just band together and we could see another double real soon, because I want to see a guy who's I think is the best driver in the world right now, attempt the double the other way around, coming from IndyCar to NASCAR. But
Connor Daly?
Connor Daly, yeah.
Kiffin Simpson.
Stingray Rob.
David Malukas.
I-
You're referring to Alex Palou if anyone's fallen under a rock, by the way. Which I think he's on the list. I think Scott McLaughlin would be my number one IndyCar guy because he could do better in the Cup side than Palou, but that's my opinion.
I don't think it's a matter of whether or not what we have to do, or if like should start times change for either one. It's more of the fact that it's just not gonna happen. The problem is, of course, is that IndyCar for the Indianapolis 500, IndyCar, first off, it's already pretty early. I mean, it already starts at like 12:45, 1 p.m., which is a pretty decent time. And then, so I feel like they already kind of are doing NASCAR a favor, like providing enough space for that to occur. And not to mention, they shouldn't change the start time because they're the bigger race. So that's really not, I don't think that's something that should fall on them. And then you have the NASCAR side of things, in which they're not going to change the time because they're NASCAR, and no, we're not going to change our starting time for some open wheel series. That's just not going to occur. So we're going to keep it as it is. But not to mention, they kind of can't do it because it's already pretty late. And the race, I don't know if you guys remember, the race ended like what, 10:30 on a Sunday night. Like, I know it's Memorial Day weekend, but people are still going to go to bed. Like, some people still have got to wake up and work in the morning. So it's already ending pretty late as it is. Like, there's really not much you can do about it. So it's unfortunate that they're both endurance races, and you can't really change it a whole lot because they're both just going to be long races regardless. But at the same time, when it comes to the overarching questions, does something change to make sure that it's doable? I don't think it should, because that's almost the intrigue of the double. It's already really, really hard to do. That's why only one person has actually finished it between, 12 people now? I kind of like that challenge aspect. It's like when somebody actually does do it, or when somebody ever actually does complete it again, it's going to be a really special thing, because it's like, look at all these legendary people, all these drivers who have attempted it and have failed. But this person has finally done it. Of course, the only person that's done it is Tony Stewart. So that's a really big deal for when that occurs. John, what's your thought?
And to answer your first question, I got the race report from NASCAR at 11:10 p.m. Eastern time. So, the race ended around 10:50, 11 p.m. I don't remember exactly what time we headed out to pit road. So, I mean, that part alone, it makes it difficult because it is like a 4.5, 5 hour race if there are no red flags or no rain delays or anything like that. So NASCAR, they certainly can't move it to like 7 p.m. because then you're going to be ending midnight or later. So that part alone makes that difficult. With IndyCar, let's see. So the green flag was supposed to be Indy's Eastern time, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, there is a little bit of play you could do there. But it also comes down to, are they going to be willing to do that? Because there is some inherent competition, even though, Penske owns IndyCar. But they're not going to go out of their ways to help each other out. So that's the part that, is concerning. I wish they would. And I love what Justin Marks said during the post-race press conference on Sunday. He said if he was in charge, he would do everything in his power to make it possible for someone to do the double. Because then you could see, like you said, Palou do it, or you could see Kyle Busch try it because he had a couple deals in place that fell through. I want to see someone do that because I was not paying attention. I was in 7th grade when Tony Stewart successfully did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to cover it I want to cover it from a sports writer perspective, to be able to talk to the driver who successfully pulled it off. Because let me tell you, talking to Larson last year and this year, it's a bummer. Because you see how upset he is. You see all the different teams being well, man, we just wasted all this money trying to make this work. And then, Rain screwed it over last year. Rex screwed it over this year. You want to see someone actually have success. Will it ever happen again? I don't know. I'd probably be more pessimistic in that outlook. I would like to see it happen. I would like them to work together to make it happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say the biggest winner of those comments might be Connor Zilic, who looked at. By the way, fun fact. Speaking of Alex Blow, uh, that both Alex Blow and Lando Norris were teammates at one point when they were in F2. So pretty
Wow.
interesting. Think about that. And I guess they theoretically were teammates at McLaren because Alex Blow was like for a second because Palou was going to be like the reserve driver for F1 or something like that. I know he tested the McLaren one time and then obviously stayed with Chip Ganassi Racing. I guess technically Palou and Chastain both raced at Chip Ganassi Racing at the same time too, so they're all connected. How about that?
I'm just saying, just to throw this out there. I forgot to mention this earlier in my rant, and I apologize for interrupting you. There's nothing more I want to see than Kyle Busch team up with Chip Ganassi for an IndyCar event just to see those personalities together.
He does like winners. He does, and Kyle Busch does. To me, that makes me feel like we talked about this I think last year as the like most obvious double. Next person to do the double was Connor Zilic, and obviously he's with Trackhouse, and that makes it clear. I think Scott McLaughlin belongs in that conversation as well because he races like he at least has had experience in obviously the Gen 7 car was based off the Australian supercar.
Yep.
And it's why I think like I would argue he would have the best shot to win both. It's either him or Larson, but I don't know if we'll even see Larson do it. It seems like he finally got defeated from it after this year. And he said he wants to do the Indy 500 again, but he doesn't know if he'll do the double again. And the problem is it just logistically has to be so perfect that it's going to be hard. I think they should encourage it. Like, you know what? Just be like, I think if you really think about it, to me, a fan's not going to care about what time something ends if you have something that is gravitating. Like a playoff basketball game that ends at midnight because it went to overtime, that fan's not going to care the next day they have to get up early because they got to watch some historic moment. Now, if you move, let's just say 30 minutes each way, so you do like roughly like 6:45, 7 for the Coke 600 and noon for the Indy 500, that's enough probably of a window. And that gives you, what, like 4.5 hours to do the Indy 500 and enough time to get to Charlotte. And I think that would work because when there's 10 laps to go and Larson is like, or whoever is on the lead lap, or if it's Larson's case, probably pushing for the lead unless he wrecks in it, like the fans watching it are not going to care if they have to give up the next day. Besides, the next day is Memorial Day anyway. So, like, I think that idea, I think attempting history should be encouraged as much as possible. And that's where I will stand on that. By the way, shout out to the Weenie 500 as well, the other race that was this past week.
The greatest race of the entire weekend.
Chicago dog got robbed.
It was rigged.
If you listen to the morning warm-up with Trey Lyle, who did have John Newby on this week, Trey Lyle successfully picked the Slaw Dog to win, and he did. Because I know my hot dogs.
And I'm still bitter about it.
It's okay. That's why John Newby had to show up here. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't. He just willfully
lost a bet.
Yeah.
He just was willing to show up, and we appreciate it. So, John, before we get you on out of here, anything you want to plug, promote, share your socials? I don't know why that word came out like that, but go ahead.
Absolutely. So, as you can see on the screen, my Twitter is JohnNewby_. Please follow me there because I still need to get those numbers boosting a little bit. Go to altdriver.com, altdriver.com. Read some articles about racing. And preferably, if you want to go read the interview I did with Bert Kreischer and Noah Gregson about them teaming up at the campground at Charlotte Motor Speedway, that'd be sweet. Also, I'm going to have a couple stories coming up. One will be about, Richard Childress and his history with hunting and conservation, if you're into that. And then the other will be deep dive into all of Ford Performance's weird, crazy EV demonstrators, like the Lightning switchgear, their 1400 horsepower Mach-E, and then all of those crazy cars and all the fun that goes into building those. So those will get posted this week.
So before we get these other two guys to plug, we need to shout out Michael Massie, because Caleb Barnes, he's been regretting updating this because his team's been doing so bad, but our front stretch draft has been updated. And Michael Massie has pulled out to a big lead, but if you watched any of the NBA playoffs, it is not over yet. As you can see, he's up to 1,772. Trey Lyle flying into second place at 1,535. Caleb in third at 1,514, and then womp womp. Dalton in last at 1,409.
I got the most points this past weekend, though.
You did. So
It's because I had Kyle Larson dragging me down.
couple of stats. Massey's, as mentioned, is running away with it. Has had 0 weeks dipping into the double digits. His lowest week has been 117.
You guys also pressured me into picking Chris Buescher. So
don't say he's gonna win the championship every year. For reference,
I don't. I literally don't. You make me say that.
Hey. I had Zane Smith, so you can calm down. Dalton has only scored more than 117 4 times. Coke 600 was Dalton's second highest weekend. This was also my worst weekend, second worst weekend of the season. If it helps, Caleb has had 1 and 3 of the worst weekends of the seasons, and they recently happened Texas and Kansas. Your best weekend of the season was Coda, by the way, Dalton, and none of your drivers have won a stage or a race this season.
Yeah. It's
Hey, if you
pressure
want
me into picking,
if you want a
drivers.
bright side, you're still doing better than what Brian Nolan did last year.
Well, that's not that hard to do.
So
It's a really low bar.
But before we get on out of here, you two were at Indy all week. So anything you want to plug from that or what you have coming up this week, Massie, you can go first, I guess.
Yeah, I'll be writing this week. I'm not sure what I'm gonna write about yet. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days. But this weekend, we're gonna keep on going with the race coverage. I will be at Langley Speedway in Virginia for the Cars Tour race, myself and Luke and Glover. So follow that content on frontstretch.com and on the Front Stretch Grassroots YouTube page.
This past weekend, Massie and I did both go the Indy 500, so there's a lot of content right now on the Front Stretch Open Wheel YouTube page, so go check that out, all the recap. We both wrote some sidebars. He did his on Connor Daly, I did mine on a special with AJ Foyt Racing, and they're double top 5 now, as a matter of fact. So congrats to them. So I put out a sidebar on them. Go check that out if you haven't already. And as far as the future goes, I will be at Nashville this upcoming weekend. So looking forward to that. Check out all the content that myself and Danny Peters are going to be coming out with this weekend. John, are you going to be there at Nashville?
No, when I was doing my summer travel budget, I had the option of Nashville or the Brickyard. And so since I was at Nashville last year, I chose the Brickyard for this year.
Easy pick. Yeah, for sure.
Got it?
That's it. Yeah, check it out. I'm not doing thinking this weekend. I think it's going to be Anthony.
As always, you can listen to Bring the Heat with Brian Nolan. We'll maybe a very, very special guest. Brian Nolan will be there, so we'll balance that out. And that comes out on Thursday. So make sure you tune into that. And we'll have Through the Gears as well. And that will do it for this episode. I'll make sure you tune into the watch party, by the way, on Sunday for the race at Nashville. So we'll have that live on the YouTube channel. I have no idea who will be with me on that. And as always, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Happy Hour. We're out. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye, everybody.